All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Today is July the 8th, 2025, and welcome to episode 10 of the DLP, the Deathlog podcast. Welcome in. My name is Mike. I usually have MikeDaBiz down there, but I forgot to change it. And my co host today, Tito Santana Jr., which I love your little emoji there, by the way.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Tito Santana, bro. He was one of my favorites, but
yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Glad to be here and excited to just kind of run through free for all. So, yeah. Definitely subscribe and join the chat. Get in on this conversation, people. I can't stress enough how you gotta talk more, people. You gotta chat more. Put some stuff in there.
Yes, let's see if we can get a few people in. Again, we are starting a little bit early, by the way. So, well, not early. I would say this is a pretty good time, I guess. But, some people still might be at work, etc., like that. So, for the people that are at their jobs, you can catch the replay, smash the like button, and comment down below.
Definitely do so. Definitely. Oh, man. Mm-hmm. A lot of weirdness happening this week. But, yeah, you want to go over the various PLEs that's happening and this.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into that really quick, right? So if you guys are watching the thumbnail, it has Tony Khan versus Triple H, right? So if you guys haven't noticed lately, WWE is starting to kind of compete with AEW on picking the same dates that AEW is having their pay-per-views, which can piss off a few people, right? Because one, if you're a wrestling fan, you don't like to miss content, right? Whether you watch both or just watch one, right? So personally, like me, I'm a little upset because, obviously this weekend is All In Weekend, July 12th in the evening, right? And WWE will be hosting, I believe, two events that day. So you're going to have Evolution, Revolution, whatever, and then you're going to have Saturday night's main event. And I believe the following day, they're also going to have an NXT event. Don't quote me on that, but I think they're going to have an NXT event as well. So WWE is going to be like a filled weekend for them. But, to kind of throw a little jab at Tony Khan and his big weekend, because it is their WrestleMania for the year, right? I don't know if you've been keeping up with AEW and what's going on with them, Tito.
Nope.
So, okay.
I just don't.
So I still watch weekly, by the way. If I can watch it live, I'll watch it live because I have Max.
Yeah.
But if I don't, I'll just watch the replay. That goes for both shows. Although usually Dynamite is the only show that I kind of watch. I don't really watch Collision frequently. If I'm home and it's a Saturday night and I'm bored and they're actually showing it on a Saturday, then I'll watch it. But if sometimes and lately they've been kind of moving it to Thursday or other days, just depending on what's going on with them and trying to not be, I guess, I know they just had the NBA finals recently and whatnot, so they were having to work around that on their schedule. But anyways, I guess, what are your thoughts as far as WWE trying to kind of steal the spotlight and trying to take away from viewership on that level, considering first of all, Saturday night main event and Evolution or whatever really aren't top tier things to watch.
So it really points to that this debt that TKO Endeavor have is really eating away at the company. For them to be that petty to put an event like a Saturday night main event and the Evolution PLE, which is an all women's PLE, to do that on the exact same time that AEW is doing what is known as their WrestleMania of their promotion, it just really tells you that the company is really reaping needing to get money. Like, we already see all the decisions that they have made, the countless cuts of talent that they had to cut to save money, the negotiations between them and Joe Anoa'i about his contract, or Roman Reigns about his contract and how much he's paid annually, and the decision to cut WrestleMania from New Orleans and keep it in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
All these decisions, I mean, everyone pretty much knows they're hurting for cash, which is something that you really don't hear quite a lot. You don't ever really hear WWE's in debt and is, big trouble with money.
Right.
So, it seems like right now they're playing cutthroat. Whatever AEW is gonna do, all these decisions. I mean, everyone pretty much knows they're gonna mess it up, for AEW because they want the viewership, they want the view counts, the streams, they want the ticket sales. This is kind of like, this also makes sense why they would have collaboration deals with TNA and with AAA. It's really to just kind of like put this huge spotlight on WWE so they can push and sell events to make money. That's the first thing that comes to my mind when you're like, why is WWE dropping these shows on the same time as another promotion's PLE? That to me is it's just that they're being cutthroat.
Yeah,
it's sad to hear, but it's the reality of it.
No, it's understandable. I mean, I never thought you would hear that word also that you mentioned, that WWE is maybe having some financial issues. Now, I don't know if it's WWE, it's in its entirety, right? They are owned by that parent group, TKO. So,
it's The Rock. It's The Rock's fault.
Yeah. Blame The Rock. It's The Rock. Let's point fingers at that guy over here.
If he would stop buying his, $1,000 silk shirts, then
and promoting shitty movies that nobody wants to watch, right?
Tooth Fairy, Doom. What up, Gene? Glad to have you here.
Gene?
He's
I know,
ready
man.
For Saturday Night Main Event. Yeah.
At 3 p.m., the Great American Bash. Okay, so an Evolution and
Goldberg's not winning.
I think Goldberg's gonna win, honestly, dude. So we can talk about I don't even know. I really don't know the match card for that event. Honestly, I just know it's Goldberg versus Gunther, and that's really the only match that I'm aware of.
World Heavyweight title.
Yeah, World Heavyweight title. I think they have a triple threat for the Women's Intercontinental Champion. You have Becky Lynch, Bayley, and Lyra. Bird Girl.
Lyra Valkyria.
Valkyria.
My God. I like her talent-wise, but I feel like that she needs a little bit more work to grabbing, the fan base to get behind her. I think she's a little stale. She's not vanilla, but she's getting there, and she don't do something quick.
She's like in the middle between like green and vanilla or something like that, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's crazy because like when I watch wrestling clips on TikTok, it's like, okay, you always get like the feuds, the pipe bombs, but when it comes to Lyra, the most circulated video is when she had a wardrobe malfunction and her top nearly came off.
Right.
And it's like that's it. Like no finisher move, no freaking pipe bomb drop, nothing on Lyra for that. Just her almost going nude on live TV. Like, come on, people.
Well, not to take anything away from Lyra, I think they are trying to do a little more with her character as far as the development of her character, right?
I hope.
I mean, she did, cut a semi decent promo, and now at least on Raw recently, right? Kind of attacking Becky Lynch and then of course Bayley, right? And she dropped them both, man. In the middle of the ring, so it's gonna feel that way, I think, because like it was like the prior generation, when Bayley and all these girls were first coming in, and you still had female talents like Nikki Bella, Brie Bella's, all those other talents from like the teen era of the female division, right? The 2010 to 2020. And they were going out in these new the current popular generation that are currently here, right, which are still Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Bayley. I feel like those are the top three veterans as far as the female. Can't forget Natalya, even though Natalya has been there since the ruthless aggression era, right? Early 2000s. I think a lot of people forget how long Natalya has been there, right? She's been there for a long time. I don't want to take anything away from her either, right? But it's gonna feel weird, right? Seeing all these girls like Lyra and people fighting for the U.S. title, right? Girls like Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, right? Kind of like the next generation of female talent that are kind of having they're kind of being pushed strong on us, honestly, because I think that's what WWE wants, right? They want more names, but at the end of the day, you know, I can't disagree with you that, you know, Lyra has been kind of, you know, a dud since she's been there. You know, kudos to her for being the first ever women's Intercontinental Champion, right? I think, you know, that's never gonna go away, but you know, now you got to kind of take the ball and run with it, I think, and we're kind of not seeing that. I thought it was a huge mistake putting the U.S. belt on Julia right now. I thought she could have chased it a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, it kind of boils down to like what you said before, where you're like you weren't feeling it that Zelina Vega was United States champion, and taking time to kind of just think about that. Like, yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from with that. Watching her with the title run was a little. It's like having a toothache with no Novocaine. It was really slightly painful and cringe. Honestly, I mean, a person who was getting people like writing on her to get the Women's United States Championship was Michin, and I think they fumbled the ball on that.
Yeah, they did.
So who knows? Maybe there'll be another push for Michin to chase the United States Women's Championship, but her to kind of go up against Julia.
I mean, it's been disappointing with that, man, honestly, you know, because like she really hasn't been on TV since Chelsea Green was the United States champion there, man. So you know, it's been kind of with Michin. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they throw her back in NXT for a good 6 months.
They could cut her.
Racing. Yeah, they could. She might be a part of the next set of cuts, man. Honestly,
and
it's not because like she can't wrestle or anything like that. It's just that they're not. You know, they're not making money off her, right? And you know,
because they're not booking her right.
They're not. Yeah, and we could say that every day, man. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, look at Chelsea Green, right? You know, when she first came back, man, you know, she was one of those like Karen type characters, right? And now like she's kind of like a fan favorite, right? Because like, you know, she was what's called maximizing your minutes, man. You know, she was only getting like 2-3 minutes, you know, on the air, man, but you know, she was really kind of resonating with the crowd, and I think that's what, you know, is lacking with some of these stars is you're not trying to, you know, okay, if they're not going to put you to wrestle, right, become a character, right, show them that you're somebody that they want to watch on TV, whether it be just behind stage interviews or something, right, something dumb. And, you know, of course, you know, Chelsea Green went on to be the first women's United States champion. And, you know, now she has her, you know, her little Secret Service crew. And now, you know, you know, I think there's a thing where like, you know, they have like a, what do you call it? Like the Pledge of Allegiance to Chelsea thing going on. I think they were doing that in NXT when she was kind of going back and forth between promotions. NXT would do it a lot. But, you know, I think it's hilarious on what her and her group's doing. And not just that, but like, you know, she's getting Piper Niven over. And that other girl, I don't even know the other girls. I don't remember the other girl's name. Not Isla Dawn, but forget the other name. But she's like, you know, Scottish or something like that. Alba Fire, yes. So you know they're using, if you look at her group, right, they're using them a lot more because Chelsea, you know, broke her nose, or you know, she's had flight delays recently, and it's just one of those things where I can't be there, but I'm gonna use one of my other talents, right? You know, so you know, maximize your minutes. I don't know what's going on with Michin, right? You know, again, she could be a part of that next set of releases. I don't think that's gonna be happen with Lyra though, just because Lyra, I feel like she is a favorite of like Triple H, man. Like, you know, I think he does have his favorites, unfortunately.
Yeah, he does. He does. But, you know, speaking of Michin, you know, with the what was it? The qualifier for, I guess, you know, a shot at the women's tag team championships. Obviously, they had a tournament, and you know, Charlotte, Alexa, they won. I knew they were going to become a team, but you also got to give it up too, because you know, Michin and B-Fab, and then you had Piper Niven and Alba Fire. To me, it was a pretty solid match. I love the chemistry that I'm seeing between Charlotte and Alexa. I mean, that blind tag, that was hilarious because, you know, Charlotte patting Alexa on the head like a little sister, and then doing the moonsault, going to take out Piper on the rope, but the referee had counted it as a tag. So then, you know, Alexa, you know, hits with her finisher and gets the pin. and then the awkward hug at the end of that, where it's like, where all this is going, I'm liking. Which what we said on the off air. One of the things you said was that they're trying to spice in the women's tag team division, and by rightfully they need to do that for because those belts are, in my opinion, they're more like props right now than actual championships, and they need to restore the prestigiousness, the honor to those belts, make them mean something again. So good on them for doing that. But what are your thoughts on the women's tag team?
Well, I think Alexa and Charlotte themselves, it could be something that could be a little comical. It kind of reminds me of tag teams, kind of like your Bray Wyatts and Matt Hardys, and who else? Goldust and Booker T. Your Goldust and Booker T's, right? Which you had like one normal person and one. Well, I wouldn't call Bray and Matt Hardy normal, right? But one person that's kind of like normal and the other one that's kind of a little off the spectrum, right? A little crazy, right? Obviously Charlotte would be the more normal one, and Alexa being the more unhinged one, right? Which hopefully will lead into a good feud, right? I would love to see them feud again, right? They've had feuds before, but I think it could do well. I think Charlotte needs a not a redo, but like a recalibration on her character, right? Because a lot of people have just been complaining about her, right? Because she overtakes she leaves for a year and then she comes back and she wins the Women's Royal Rumble and this and that, but they have her in those spots for a reason. I'm looking at it from like the mindset of like Triple H and all of them, where like Charlotte, she technically is the bar for the women's division in WWE, right? She's held the most titles, has had the most accomplishments. I think she's the only two-time Women's Royal Rumble winner also. You can look that up later. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Right.
But she has all the accolades, right? And obviously the name that's attached to her, kind of it doesn't help her, right? Because her dad's Ric Flair, but at the end of the day, right, her dad was not the one in developmental, in NXT, FCW at the time, right? He didn't wrestle for her, he didn't do any of that, right? Obviously the only thing that she kind of takes away from her dad is the woo thing, right? And maybe the blonde hair, but right, I feel like people they bash Charlotte Flair too much for no reason, honestly.
They bash her because of who her dad is. Like, so let me kind of put to bed this whole stereotypical thing that they kind of attach to Charlotte. Yeah, because Charlotte is good. She's really good. I mean, whether she's a heel or a face, but like, watch her performance in the ring. She's really good. I give her that any day of the week. And I think the problem is that people think because she is Ric Flair's daughter, that they imagine backstage all she has to do is walk up to to Paul and be like, Paul, I won a women's championship. And Paul's like, yes, your dad was Ric Flair and a good friend of mine. You're getting a title shot. You're going over. Like, no, it's not because of Rick. Yeah. Like, that is, they even tried it to where, remember at that one point where she kind of like treated her dad like crap.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that.
They were using all angles.
She made him cry.
Yeah, because they were using all angles to kind of separate Ric Flair from her, because everyone's first thought was she gets everything because of her dad. Yeah. No. If you look back in the days of WCW, David Flair didn't get crap. And, it wasn't because, that, Rick had nothing to do with David and his development. Yeah. He made sure that David developed on his own. It also kind of like played a hand in the outcome of David. Yeah. But one thing we do know is that when we see Ric Flair being the dirtiest player in the game, it doesn't mean that he's going to help his kids cheat their way to the top. He's not like that, and neither are his kids. So I think people should give Charlotte a little bit more, credibility than that. Yeah. To always assume that it's because she's Ric Flair's daughter, she gets everything. Like, no.
Yeah. So again, I think people need to kind of lay off of that, right? Because she puts over people all the time, man. Like, otherwise she wouldn't be, a 14-time women's champion like she is, right? She's kind of like Cena level when it comes to the women's division, right? Where where she has all those titles and accolades, but it just, I guess a lot of people just still hate on her. So that's my thing with Charlotte Flair, right? So let's see if they're able to kind of revamp her as far as her character goes, right? Maybe, give us something a little bit different, right? Where everyone's so used to Charlotte being,
or make Charlotte twisted. Make Charlotte twisted. Like, I would laugh my ass off if they brought back her doll, the doll they named Charlie.
Oh god.
Like, oh man, would that be so weird to have like keep Charlotte in the way that she is, but then let her go unhinged.
Yeah.
When push comes to shove, and I think, I can see where you're going with it. It's going to be very comical to see them, but at the same time, very exhilarating, refreshing, new. Like, tired of seeing the women's tag team titles, and it's usually like the same old vanilla shit. Excuse my language, but
right.
Faces versus heels. But why not the quirky versus the rest of the women's roster? Like that to me just makes a whole lot more sense. So, congratulations to them winning, the right to challenge for the women's tag team championships, which also I kind of want to lead into something that's very similar to it. Because, what was it? This Sunday, my brother came over to hang out and have dinner, and we were talking wrestling. And so I told him, because he asked me, what do I think is going to happen to Liv Morgan? And my guesstimation is Liv is gonna go face. But not go traditional face, but she's gonna go face, because I feel like, honestly, it's gonna, she's gonna come back. Of course, Roxanne is pretty much taking her spot.
Yeah.
And Raquel is already starting to slightly bond with her, with all the assists that she's giving. And I could just see Liv Morgan coming back and just not having a place. This is also a great way for them, if they wanted to beef up the women's tag team division, but to realign Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley for one, like a one night thing, or maybe like a one moment thing where those two unite as a tag team and probably go 2-on-2 with Roxanne and Raquel, the Judgment Day. So there are variables that can make that happen, because also too, they've been teasing this Stephanie Vaquer and Rhea Ripley alliance thing.
Yeah.
So it really looks like that in the women's division, they're going to start focusing on the women's tag team division. And I think that's a very good spot, because it gives a lot of the talent, the women talent, more spotlights to shine. If not in the singles title competition, in the tag team competition, that gives everyone more time to be on TV and to get over with the fans, for sure.
Yeah. And plus, it'll help build other female talents that are maybe not so established, right? If you have an Alexa and Charlotte Flair in the tag division, right? Obviously, Raquel and Roxanne are the current champions now that Liv is out. It'll help build their characters also, because, even though Raquel has kind of been on the main roster for the last couple of years, she hasn't really kind of developed as a character, right? She kind of was, out due to that skin condition that she had. And then shout out to Raquel and Roxanne, by the way. They're from the 956, baby. Let's go. They're from my area. Raquel's literally her hometown is like a 30-minute drive from where I live. So and Roxanne was from Laredo. So Laredo is like literally right there also. Couple hour drive, but anyways, I might be seeing them next week because I am going to a wrestling WWE's coming down on July the 20th for me, so I will be at that event. So hopefully I'll be able to talk about that. Hopefully I'll be able to get to see some nice some good talents. Anyways, going back to that though, it'll hopefully give the chance to kind of bring out the characters of Roxanne and Raquel, especially if they're a heel tag team, obviously, because Judgment Day has pretty much all of the gold on Raw except for the world title and the female mid-card title, right? So, they basically have all the tag titles, and Dom has the men's Intercontinental Championship. So I would love to see Judgment Day continue to be dripped in gold, right, in 2025. Let's see how that goes, right? Let's see how over they can get. And I really want to see where the whole Roxanne and Dom thing goes, by the way. I want to see a continuation of that. They really kind of have not been focusing on that since Liv got hurt. But I know that, like, whenever her return is imminent, right? Maybe like a month or two before her return, we're gonna start seeing signs again where, you know, okay, maybe Dirty Dom loses the Intercontinental belt at SummerSlam, right? And you know, Roxanne, you know, tries to make him feel better, right, by giving him some chicken nuggies or some chicken tenders, you know, something to that extent, right? You know, and then week by week we get a little more like, oh, you know, stuff accidentally happens where they bump into each other and little things like that. Of course, you know, Dom is dirty, right? You know, so he's gonna play into the character, and people are gonna just continue to boo but also love him at the same time for it. How does he keep doing it? How does Dom keep doing it is the question, right? Is what I'm gonna say. But also, I want to make one mention on one thing before we move on to the next topic, whatever that is, right? We are free for all. But Roxanne Perez, aside from Triple H, because I think this is the only other person I've seen it happen to, right? Is she has been the only wrestler to come in, you know, on the main roster and be given a championship without competing for it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So again, this happened last year with Naomi and, you know, her the tag team with Bianca Belair and Jade when Jade got hurt. But the thing is, Naomi has won championships before, right? Roxanne has never won any main roster gold. So that's what I'm saying. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, they just gave her the title, just as Eric Bischoff just handed Triple H the world title back in the day, you know, when they brought in the World Heavyweight Championship. They're just like, we're just going to give it to Triple H, you know, because he's the guy to have it, right? But, you know, I was just thinking to myself, she's the first person to actually not ever have to wrestle and compete as far as the women's division goes to not hold a title, right? So I guess props to Roxanne for that. You know what I mean? I wasn't really into her character in NXT, but her main roster character is actually starting to grow on me. So, you know, and again, she's from the 956 area, so I got to give her props for that. I believe she wrestled for Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. Booker T was the one that trained her. And you know, of course, she had been in the NXT system for a really long time, so she had come in, and I never got to see her wrestle locally, but I'm sure maybe at one point they probably may have brought her down to some of the indie shows that where I live. I just never went to go like watch, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
All right.
So interesting thing I want to follow up with with what Gene said earlier, you know, with the whole Goldberg Gunther Saturday Night Main Event. I'm gonna kind of explain why. I mean, if Goldberg wins the World Heavyweight Championship at Saturday Night Main Event, then I can see Seth Rollins cashing in on Goldberg as like a way for Goldberg to put down Gunther as the last person who was next. Get the title, so it does count. Even if it's only like for 30 seconds, it does count. But he loses the belt because he's in retirement, like he's retiring, right? This is his last match. And he'll lose the belt in a good way because it would be a, you know, Money in the Bank cash in. Which, you know, like I was saying earlier that we talked about it, I honestly feel like that when Seth said what he said on Monday night to Gunther, that it's not John Cena's WWE Championship that he's, you know, not only after, he's also after the World Heavyweight Championship. So it's like Seth gave us the clue. He wants to be a dual title holder like Roman. Because it always comes down, when it comes to Seth, it always comes down between him and Roman. Who's outdoing who? Because even when they have their little standoffs and you know they throw jabs at each other on the mic, right? Roman's infamous pipe bomb where he talked about that, you know, Seth works 10 times more than he does, but he makes 10 times more than Seth does. Like they trade back and forth of who really is out of their generation, who is the top dog of WWE. And so I see Seth getting it, if he does get it. You know, again, it's up to the powers that be if they're going to make Seth a dual champion, but you know, there's a strong possibility that could be the end fate for John Cena and his face turn before he actually retires. would be for him to lose the belt to Seth.
That's
but
an
if it
interesting
cashes in
theory,
on
by the
Goldberg,
way. Yeah.
it is. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Will it happen? I would say 67% it could. But it goes either way, because if he cashes on Goldberg, then obviously the Money in the Bank is cashed in. So the only way he's going to get the WWE title is to actually challenge John Cena for it. But that would be kind of weird to do, because SummerSlam, I wouldn't see that being the place to do it. I would see Seth getting involved in Cody's match with John Cena. It would have, Night of Champions already passed, so it's not like they can have like an actual PLE that's built around champions facing each other. But it'll be somewhere down the road. Maybe at War Games, Seth challenges, takes the belt from Cena. If it happens. If not, if Seth doesn't cash in, then he will for sure cash in on Cena, probably at SummerSlam. Who knows?
It's a possibility. A lot of things can go good, but also a lot of things can go wrong, because I think we leave Roman Reigns out of the equation right now just because he hasn't been there, right? Obviously, he had his sixth child, by the way, recently. Shout out to him. Congratulations to Roman Reigns for baby number 6. I think the bloodline is going to go on for a long time, is all I'm going to say.
That's not a bloodline. That's a freaking NFL team right there.
Right, for real, man.
My God, 6 kids.
To add to that, man, I know you said you and your brother had like a conversation about like, stuff here and there, right? I do have an interesting theory. I don't know if I mentioned it to you or not, that I actually heard on TikTok, and I don't know if you want me to talk about it now, or maybe I can save it towards the end of the stream, that has to do with the championships. So what would you like? You want me to say it now? Okay, so this is something I heard off TikTok, which kind of like actually made me think about it, right? Because I was just like, no, like there's no way they would do this, but I was like, but they could also do it at the same time, right? Okay, so I forgot who the creator was. I should have saved the video. I totally didn't, by the way. But this guy starts talking about, that John Cena really is going to be the last WWE champion, and what that means for people that have been following the company for all these years is that, if Cena, does retain, gets through the rest of the years WWE champion, there is a chance that, that TKO can kind of jump in and rebrand, the company or something to that extent, where, there's only one championship now, but now we're going to name it the TKO World Heavyweight Champion or whatever. You know what I mean? So I kind of really thought about that, and I was like, what if they've been trolling us? What if they've been trolling us the entire time with this John Cena thing? And what if John Cena really is the last WWE champion, and whoever is the WWE world champion at the time, whether it be Seth Rollins or hell, it could be Logan Paul, who the hell knows, right? Whoever's holding that title, it turns into the TKO world champion. Because if you look back at the acquisition of WWE with TKO, they did actually show a belt that said TKO on it, right? So I was just thinking to myself, oh my God, like, and in the video, the guy actually showed the belt, like it said TKO on it, whatever. It was a gold world championship, and I was like, oh my God, what if this guy is right? What if 2025 is the last year that we see WWE as the way we see it now. And, again, maybe there's some sort of rebranding of TKO. I mean, a lot of people disagree with that, right? A lot of people, I would say, would just agree with that because a part of, the main reason why WWE is because of the name, right? It would be crazy to get rid of the name. But, it's like, what if they just decide, okay, maybe, they get rid of the WWE championship and that championship is retired forever, right? John Cena is the last WWE championship. But what if we do get stuck with something like the TKO World Championship?
Well,
and then
they could.
Yeah.
They could do it. Like I said, God, I hope not. But I could see why they would do it. And that's just because right there on Gunther's shoulders, that is not called the World Heavyweight Champion on its own. It's always referred to as, he's the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Yeah. Which is weird because we thought it was titled as World Heavyweight Champion to separate itself from, the WWE Undisputed Heavyweight Championship. But it makes sense if they did do that, because you would still have a WWE World Heavyweight Championship in the form of the belt that's on Gunther's shoulders in that photo. Yep. So if they brought in the TKO World Heavyweight Champion, God, man, that would just I don't even like the sound of it.
Talk about being the company champion, right? When you're literally the company champion.
Pretty much. But to answer Gene's question, if Seth became a dual champion, yes, there will be a point where Roman will be looking to dethrone him for the titles. It's not going to be soon. It's because already there's rumors dropping that Roman will be at SummerSlam. Mm-hmm. So it's like a repeat of last year. He was gone since WrestleMania. He'll be at SummerSlam. The whole thing, of him having, his sixth child. Congratulations to Joe on your sixth baby. But there's also the negotiations of his contract, what they're paying him. WWE is in a bit of a financial pickle. That's not really their fault. It's actually TKO's fault. The Rock. It's oh man.
Don't talk about the final boss like that, okay?
The final boss. No, we'll talk about the final boss. Maybe if The Rock didn't spend $1,000 on his T-shirt, buy $1,000 shirts and the sunglasses, whatever it may be. I mean, it's a lot of, I don't know what deals went bad that put them in that financial bind, but it's scary because when you think about that, and then going back to what we were talking about earlier with this rebrand of the championship and all this other stuff, it's like, are they making these decisional moves because they're trying to get hot with, the wrestling fans out there to bring in the dollars to kind of, buy them some time on that debt, reduce it? Because that's why ticket sales are insane. Like my brother tried to get, tickets to Raw, and he usually goes up for the upper section seats, which are usually maybe $45-$50. Yeah. They wanted, I think it was $79 for those seats. And he was just like, damn, that was almost double, what it would cost. Yeah. And I'm like, they need money. This all culminates to all these different changes, negotiating Roman's deal. If he's going to stay a part-timer, of course, they're not going to pay him $15 million a year. They want to reduce that down. And, you also kind of look at what they're doing too, in the mix of everything. They're kind of relying on their old dogs, but big guns, right? So they're relying on CM Punk. They're relying on, John Cena. They're relying on Randy Orton to fill seats at, these weekly shows. They got Drew McIntyre. He's back now. And, who knows if he was rushed back from, injury or what. But, they're doing all these things. They're making all these changes. Like I was telling my brother, in a perfect world, if TKO was not in debt with anything, I'm sure Jay's World Heavyweight Championship would have ran longer. But I feel now, because of all these things coming to light, they took the belt off Jay, not because, there's bigger sharks in the pond that he's swimming in on Raw, but it was a financial decision to try to bring more money. And so,
and don't get me wrong, I'm sure he sells a lot of Yeet shirts and the sunglasses or whatever. But at the end of the day, right, there's bigger fish in that pond, man, a lot more bigger fish. So, that could bring in money. Plus, too, you got the new bloodline, right? Yep. So there's talks of a darker Roman Reigns coming back. There's talks of a Shield 2.0. Okay. One of my guesstimations, and I could be wrong, but he's been at the last two PLEs in the back. So, when we saw something like that with Hikuleo being back there, he ended up, doing a dark match debut and then showing up at Night of Champions and helping Solo out. So Zilla Fatu is someone who I think they may throw in with Roman because of, he's been taking shots on social media at Solo for using the Samoan Spike. But then
maybe the Shield, and I think some people are looking at it wrong. Maybe this new Shield is not going to be a 3-man crew. Maybe it's a 4-man crew. Maybe it is Jacob and Jimmy, or Jay and Jimmy, or however they can twist that. Maybe it's 5 people: Jay, Jimmy, and Jacob and Zilla on Roman's team. It'll still be like a family, civil war, and it would be the Bloodline Civil War too.
Yeah, I could see that happening at Survivor Series War Games, I guess, this year. That would be interesting.
It would be. So, there's a lot of things that they're doing, and I can see their writers are having a hard time trying to keep things cohesive with probably demands, from the board saying they need something fire. And then Paul having to come down on them with the pressure, like, you guys got to write something quick. Because with Roman's return, it could go one way or the other, or it could be, double duty. Him and his faction can feud with the Bloodline when they show up on SmackDown, and feud with Seth on Raw. And so Roman is playing double duty, It could go that way.
It could, I mean, if you think about it, when stuff like that happens, they're going back and forth between shows. The ratings for both shows are going to be somewhat level or steady. You're not going to have just, Raw have one good, good rating and SmackDown have a crappy, you might have good ratings on both shows.
Yeah, which, opens doorways for Punk to go back and forth between, because, Punk has a good relations, with Roman now after last year's War Games. So,
well, I still think that the the brand split is pretty much dead already. I mean, we've already kind of been seeing it for the last couple of weeks. With LA Knight going back and forth between Raw and SmackDown.
LA Knight.
Sami Zayn showed up on SmackDown a couple of times recently also. CM Punk as well, right? Between the PLEs, right? So who's to say?
It's the big guys. It's the big guys that's like going back and forth for sure.
Yeah, the top earners for the company, I feel like they're going to be able to move freely between promotions at this point. I think that's what TKO is going to want also, just because, again, you don't want to just have specific stars on one show and then them not, get any ratings, because maybe some people aren't watching one show opposed to the other, right? So you want them to be on both shows to get as much exposure as you can, so that, again, they're making more money than they should. And again, I agree with you on the ticket prices, man. I paid about $140 per ticket on just the basic middle bleacher section seat.
Yeah.
Which, I didn't get like the very highest. I got like in the middle, which would be like hard cam side, I guess.
Yeah.
And again, I did buy pre-sale though, so I could have waited maybe until pre-sale was over to get the ticket, right? And maybe it would have gotten a little bit cheaper. I feel like pre-sale, if you're going to buy pre-sale, you're going to have to expect to pay more, because you're actually, being offered the better seats, right? Yeah. So again, I bought a ticket for me and my buddy, which was about like $140 each, and after taxes and whatnot, it came out to a little over $300 just for 2 seats. So let's just say, I might be starving at that show. I might not buy anything. I might not buy any merch or anything, but that's okay, man. I don't really, I'm just there to enjoy the show, and hopefully, get to boo a few people that I hate. But anyways, losing my train of thought, man, honestly, but I'll let you go back here.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we'll see what happens as things develop and progress, with WWE, with TKO. We'll see what happens there. So interesting enough, kind of shifting. I, for a first, because I rarely watch, but I actually do want to talk about the whole, all elote wrestling.
Oh, all elotes. Damn, here we go. And first of all, I don't know if you noticed, but the semifinal boss was in the chat. I don't know if he was still here or not, but he did mention something about if Seth became a double champion once he draws money like Roman. Yeah, once he draws money like Roman, I agree. Yeah, for sure. Our other infamous co-host who tends to grace us with his, presence when he's not doing OF. That's for real.
But this whole feud between Jon Moxley and Hangman Adam Page, dude. Where do you see this going?
Honestly, I think TK or Tony Khan is, all about happy endings when it comes to, these pay-per-views and events, right? Obviously, Moxley has been champion for almost a little more than a year, right? I think he won the title at Wrestle Dream last year or whatever pay-per-view it was. But, Bryan Danielson last year got to kind of finish his, full-time wrestling career event on kind of like a high note, right? Although he kind of ended it on a bad note at the same time also. So as far as Adam Page and Jon Moxley goes, I do probably believe that Adam Page is going to win the championship. I think the end of it is going to be kind of like, kind of crazy, like how we saw at WrestleMania 41 with, just a lot of people interfering with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, right? And or whatever, WrestleMania 40, not 41. I'm like losing my train of thought, like I said. But anyways, I think it's going to be like that, where, you're going to have the Young Bucks come in who try to, are, paid people for Jon Moxley, paid hires. And then you're going to have Adam Page's crew come in, whether that be like a Will Ospreay or a Swerve Strickland, to kind of come in and defend him. I think currently it's like Samoa Joe and his guys. I don't even remember their group's name, but I think him and his buddies have the trios titles. Which, okay, cool. Like, nobody cares about the trios titles. But anyways, I think that's going to happen. You're going to see like a lot of back and forth in the main event. And then, coming to save the day is Bryan Danielson, right? He's been kind of resurfacing as of late, right?
Yeah, I've been seeing that.
I think he showed up at one of the Ring of Honor shows recently. So he's coming out of the woodwork. We're just not seeing it right. And we haven't seen it right because I think Tony Khan wants it to be a surprise, right? Tony Khan, I think that's something that Tony Khan is kind of good at, opposed to WWE, about like they're better at like hiding their surprises and making their pay-per-views a little more exciting rather than just being hella boring. Although one thing I think they could work on is the time of their matches and how many matches are on the card. Because, if you're watching like a 10 to 12 match card, you're going to be hella tired at the end of the day. As somebody watching it, like at home, I'm fucking tired, dude. Like, I'm just like, your train of thought and your attention span just drops. Like for me, I can't do it, man. Like, I feel like I'm on my phone half the time because most of the matches are matches that could have aired like on Collision or Dynamite, right? Some of them are, non-title matches that just really have to do with nothing, right? Yeah, if you guys saw the last pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, you'll know what I'm talking about. But, again, something I know they need to work on. Hopefully it happens. But, as far as Jon Moxley goes, I think he is going to, what happened here? I think he is going to lose the title. I would be tripping if he retained, man. If he retained, then I really believe that Bryan Danielson is going to come out of retirement and then he's going to take the title off Jon Moxley, but I think Adam Page is going to win, even though I have no fandom towards him at all, man. Like, I really don't care about his character. His character is very stale to me. If you follow him, the last couple of years at the beginning of AEW, he was a little hot. And then, ever since the CM Punk fiasco, my respect for him kind of dropped a lot, right? After CM Punk kind of ousted him on the Ariel Helwani show, which we all knew what happened, right? Obviously, from there. But it's just like, okay, like how does Tony Khan still go and try to make this guy like your top guy after all of that shit happened? Basically, ruining half of your viewership. Basically, going from like a 1.1, 1.2 million, weekly show to a 600,000 a week show because one person is not on the show anymore, right? So that's my take on it. Again, I don't think he's a bad wrestler or anything like that. You know what I mean? I think he's better than most of them in the ring, right? But I think there are better wrestlers than him also in AEW, right?
Well, hold on here.
What are we looking at? Which chat do I need to bring up?
Well, no, there's two of them. First of all, Gene, we are aware that AEW streams on Max. Secondly, there shouldn't be any rumors of Adam Page, going to leave WWE because he's not in WWE. He's in AEW.
Who? Yeah, unless he was mistaking him for like what's his face? The other Adam. How many Adams are there now? Adam Cole, yes, but Adam Cole's already in AEW. Baby! He's already in AEW. He's the TBS champion, and we can get into that also. But he's the most boring fucking TBS champion, or not TBS, TNT champion. I'm
gonna say TBS champion.
He's the most. That's Mercedes Moné, which we can get into her match also at All In as well. Predictions. We can get in predictions on that.
We'll get into that. But Adam Cole, I don't know. I agree with you. I don't know what it is with him. Like, so this is the reason why that I don't watch AEW, because there's some things they do that don't make sense.
Yeah.
So here is one thing that don't make sense to me. When I think I was watching it on TikTok. MJF joins the Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah, he's now part of the Hurt Syndicate.
Like, okay, you know, and before people get stupid and think it's about race, it's not about race.
Yeah.
All right. It almost feels like that with the Hurt Syndicate, they're making Bobby Lashley take a backseat to, you know, the crew.
Yep.
And it's like, why do that? Because they've done that to him in WWE, and you know, all the possibilities that could have happened, you know, WWE kind of forfeited that, right? And then they lost Bobby Lashley, he left again.
Yep.
And it's like, but now you're gonna make him take a backseat to MJF. Like, why? So I mean, that's one thing. One reason I don't watch AEW is because things don't make sense. Number two is I get that Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks, you know, all her heat with WWE, and so that's, you know, honestly, I feel like that's the reason why TK like has all these belts go to her. It's like trying to, it's almost like they're trying to pull the Kurt Angle, because remember Kurt Angle, geez, who the hell is messaging me?
Messaging you.
Yeah, no, I'm getting like all these notifications on my Galaxy. I just hear the ringtone going off, and I'm like, what is happening? But anyways, you know, remember when Kurt Angle left WWE for TNA?
Yeah.
And he cut his little promo in TNA, and he talked about what Vince said about him. Like, you know, he was like, you know, he was like as common as a cup of coffee. And so, you know, when he got to TNA, you know, he won TNA World Championship. He held the tag team titles. He held other promotion championships. There was one time where Kurt Angle was walking out with belts all over his arm, his neck, and waist.
Yep. He was dripped in gold also.
And they're doing the same thing to, you know, to Mercedes Moné. And it's like, if she has no intentions to going to WWE, then, you know, doing something like that to me almost feels like when you got that ex-girlfriend that, you know, you break up with. So she tries to make you jealous by dating a guy that kind of looks like you and dresses like you. But it's like totally different. It's like, that's what it feels like. So Mercedes in AEW, her title reigns to me don't mean anything, honestly. And for her fans, they can hate on me for it. I'm just calling it like I see it. I'll take her more serious as a champion when her focus is not about trying to run down WWE, but focus on trying to be the best in the women's division for AEW and help elevate it is really where I would she'll have my respect. Adam Cole being bland with the TNT title. Not only that, but just like the weirdness in all the things that he's done. You know, he was with the Young Bucks, he was with Kenny Omega, and then all of a sudden, like, he had this really weird feud with MJF, and then him and MJF were best buds instead of feuding for the title. And then, you know, he turns out to be the one to betray MJF. And then it's all over the place. Like the consistency of storytelling, the consistency of feuds, it's just crap. Like I'm ADHD and not even I can keep up with that crap. So
it's bad. Yeah,
their writers suck.
And we're not the only ones that, you know, talk about this, right? There's a lot of other wrestling podcasts and you know, journalists out there that, you know, say the same thing, right? You know, they say the wrestling's great, but, you know, the stories are just not there for a lot of the talent, right? You know, they have so much top tier talent in the company. It's like, it's just so hard for me to like watch it sometimes, because sometimes I'm just like, what the hell did I just watch? Or what am I watching? How does this make sense? Like, how do you go from this character to this character to that character? You know, when it comes to you know, certain titles or, you know, certain storylines, you know, using Mercedes as an example, right? You know, she came in, you know, we knew it was going to happen, right? She went to Japan post WWE, you know, did her thing over there, right? I didn't expect her to stay there long. They bring her in. To me, what made no sense to me was you bring her in and she was still injured. Okay. She did not wrestle for like the first 3 or 4 months of being there. She was just kind of making appearances, doing her little, you know, little CEO dance. I'll do it for you guys. CEO. Okay, CEO. There you go. So, you know, you guys better throw in some super chats for that. But anyways, we're not monetized yet. I forget. It's all good. But anyways, I'll throw this up on the B-Tech channel later. So they bring her in, you know, they have her kind of come in and she just starts to bury talent, right?
Yeah.
She starts off with females like obviously she took the title off of the blonde girl. I already forgot her name, Julia Hart, right? She was the champion at the time. But even then, Julia Hart was kind of over. She was a little bit over. She's one of the youngest female talents that they have. Julia Hart ends up getting hurt, I believe. I don't remember if that was the time she got hurt. She got hurt not too much after she was gone. Chris Statlander, right? Who is technically a lot of wrestling fans out there are saying that Chris Statlander is the woman of that division, basically.
Right.
But again, buried. It didn't take too long for her to be buried. Who else? Forget the other, Willow Nightingale, by the way, who again was also the TBS champion prior to Julia Hart winning it off of her, I believe. Again, had a small stint with her. Again, buried. There was no there's no follow-up storylines. They just kind of take away all these women talents that that she gets into with Mercedes Moné, and it's just okay, you're not seeing any development. You're just seeing Mercedes, being the best women's wrestler, right? But it's how is her being there elevating any of the other women on the roster? It's not. It's just putting them to the side. And they even had Athena, aka Ember Moon, right? From WWE, who hasn't even been on TV for the last 2 years. She's been the ROH Women's Champion for 10 years already, and no one no one fucking knows because no one watches ROH.
Right.
But anyways, it's they bring her in and they hype up a match between them, and it actually happens. And then what happens? She loses to Mercedes Moné, right?
You're
so
right.
It's just, again, I don't mind the talents losing if it helps them in the long run, but it's they're not doing anything with these talents. They have been kind of, trolling a women's tag team division, which God, I hope they don't, because how many freaking more titles does AEW need right now?
One more.
They don't even do it. They don't do anything with the trios title. They don't do anything with the continental title. They don't do anything with the international title. They seriously don't do anything with the TNT title. I was gonna say that when I mentioned Adam Cole being the TNT championship earlier, dude, I haven't seen shit with him and the TNT title. I think I remember watching him defend it at Double or Nothing, but I don't even remember who he feuded with. That's how bad it is right now, and that's why
it's too many belts.
That's why I agree with you with your whole ADHD thing also, that that it just nothing makes sense. You know what I mean? There's not a consistency with timelines and characters and feuds, right? I think that's something WWE has that down on a knit, right? I feel the only thing that they really do focus on is the world title, right? And that's Adam Page and Jon Moxley. And Jon Moxley's just fucking there every week, showing up, beating people up, and leaving. You know what I mean? He's not doing shit either. He's not contributing to anything. Literally the world title has been off the TV for a year also. And it being off the TV for a year has not helped your company at all, right? Jon Moxley has not been in a bunch of banger or badass matches, right? Everything that he does TV-wise is just hella boring. The only thing I'm excited about when I'm seeing his group is Marina Shafir, man, because she's always holding the briefcase. She's kind of the muscle of that group, if you think about it. She's always the one that kind of is the reason why her and their team actually win, right? She always gets in there with Cesaro and the hair guy, the beard face guy. I don't even want to say his fucking name because I don't even remember it. Cesaro, because no one really cares about him as Claudio Castagnoli, right? They had him as ROH World Champion for a minute, and then they got over it really quick, right? But really, Jon Moxley, he'll come in there, he'll cut a dumbass promo, do you got what it takes to take the title off me? You don't know what it is to be the world champion and to have to deal with this pressure, this and that. You know what I mean? He doesn't do shit, man. He shows up, he goes through the crowd, he beats some people up, they run away. That's it. How is that adding value to your company? How is him being? And don't get me wrong, right? I respected what Jon Moxley did the first couple of title reigns that he did, right?
Right.
Even when it was the Blackpool Combat Club, whatever you want to call it, and before he turned even before he turned double heel, I guess, whatever you want to call it, there was some respect there because, again, he was kind of wrestling in a time where the company needed it, right? Even though he was going through his sobriety issues, and he was gone for a little bit, right? I mean, if you follow his story, right, there's a lot of respect that goes out there to him, right? But again, I just don't see like the value that he's adding to him being the world champion. I think he's probably the most winning world champion that they've ever had as a company, right? I think he's been like champion 4 or 5 times already, and that's saying something. But at the end of the day, it's like no one's gonna care about this last title run that he had, because he didn't really do shit with it. He didn't have like a bunch of amazing matches, and he's just been kind of ducking and dodging the entire year basically. So for him to get into it with Adam Page again, Adam Page, the outlaw, the cowboy, whatever the fuck he is, just no interest in me seeing that either, man. Like I just have no interest. I would have preferred to see Adam Copeland come back, Edge or whoever else, right, and feud with him, man. Oh my god.
Yeah, those wouldn't make sense. It's bad booking. That's what it is. Like Tony Khan is like a kid with the ant farm. He's got all this talent. He's acquired talent from his rivals, and then all he's doing is just like, oh, these are the matches I want to see, and shift stories and shift feuds. And it's like these two are feuding, and all of a sudden people are like, what happened to their feud? Because he's feuding with somebody else. It's really what it is. They need to book better. They need better story writers. Okay. They have way too many talent to give TV time. That is another big problem.
Yeah.
You can't cut a kick-ass promo in 2 minutes. I mean, you have to be seasoned like, Phil Brooks. He can cut a good-ass promo in 2 minutes. You got to be seasoned to do that, but not everybody is gifted to do that just naturally. They have to have the training and the time. And then, like you said, they bring in somebody from a rival company and they use that person to bury their own talent. They self-cannibalize their own talent. Mercedes Moné, you're never going to build her up to be the next Charlotte Flair. You're not going to make her the Charlotte Flair of your company, calling her the best in the world. No, it's not going to work. And honestly, if Mercedes was actually really smart in the head, she wouldn't even play that role. Considering the fact that where she stood in WWE alongside with Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, and Bayley, and it's like fans are going to see that pretty quickly. If you don't like WWE for what they did, if you walked out on that company because of the way that they were, then why even associate yourself to being a ripoff of something that they've done? Like Mercedes could be great all in her own right, but she should be putting over AEW young talent. She should get title, kind of like what you said earlier. She wins, she'll be like a 14-time, champion in AEW only because she's winning titles and then putting new talent over and dropping the belt to them.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of why, I really, I'll be honest with everybody, I really wanted to like AEW. I really wanted to say I got more wrestling shows to watch. But when I started seeing the way Tony was doing things, the injuries that were happening, too many talent on the roster, titles that didn't matter, and grabbing, wrestlers whose faces have been in WWE and using them to bury your own talent, not being able to control the behavior in the locker room with your talent and personal heat back there. It's just like, why do you even have this promotion? I honestly felt Tony should just sell it to somebody else who's really passionate about wrestling. That will do it right. But I don't know.
I mean, I don't disagree. I don't know about the whole selling thing, but it's like, okay, bring in a team of writers that are actually going to write good storylines for your talent, and just don't throw them all into random 8-man tag match or 12-man tag matches just because you're paying them, but they don't have any time for type of storylines, right? Because that's what I see, if that's what we get a lot on shows like Collision, right? Where maybe Dynamite tends to show more storyline, but then Collision, I feel like they just have the leftovers that people don't care to see on regular Dynamite, so they just throw them in on those ginormous 8-man tag matches that nobody cares about. And then of course they throw in all these, people from CMLL or New Japan that no one knows or nobody cares about. You know what I mean?
They don't even give backstory.
There's no backstory. Like, hey, this is, Echechero, he's, former 10-time, CMLL champion, and he's here to, to make, a wave in AEW. No, they don't say anything about it.
They give no build up.
They expect, the fans to know, which, a lot of people that watch, they're casual fans, dude. They're not watching, other countries, or, they're not watching AAA. They're not watching CMLL. Like me, I don't go out of my way to watch, a AAA or CMLL or New Japan. Like if I see a clip float around online, of a match, right, I might, chime in on it for a minute or two just to see what it's about. But I don't really take the time to invest on who that person is or whatever, right? Of course, some people will, but I personally don't, right? And I'm pretty sure you don't either, right? It's not like you're like, hey, I need to watch CMLL this week, right? I got to make sure that I'm up to date with all the characters and this and that. That way, if they show up on AEW, I know exactly who's going to be there. Yeah, they
have no build up to it. There's no depth to the reasons of why. I mean, I honestly don't want Tony Khan to sell the company. I hit that line because I'm like, if he can't run it, hire somebody to run it for you and run it the right way. Going back to, when you have wrestlers that come in from different promotions, because Gene was talking about it, like, how do we feel about, AAA's Worlds Collide with Ray Phoenix and Penta, I guess, teaming up. I didn't hear about that, but to me, that would be cool. Like AAA, luchador wrestling is one of my favorite styles. I love it. It's fast paced, high flying, dangerous. I mean, so, to see, Penta and Ray, they're brothers. Everyone should know that if they follow their careers. To team up as a tag team. I honestly feel like that this is also a way for WWE to kind of see like what would happen if they let the brothers actually become a tag team, and maybe throw them in the tag team division. So there's new faces, fresh meat in the tag team division in WWE. With AEW, they gotta knock it off. No more titles. I don't want to see 2026. Here comes and we're unveiling the brand new, quad tag team championship. Four guys. So now we're gonna have a six-man tag for the titles, and now we're gonna have an 8-man tag for the titles. Like, we don't need that. What they need to do is get rid of these belts and start putting stock behind the ones that they want to matter. So when they are defended, when they have a champion cut a promo, it actually matters.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mistake they did was bringing in the TBS and the TNT titles, man. Those are like television championships that just no one really focuses on. And when they first brought them in, we were like, okay, these are going to be the mid-card titles, right? Because how do you say, they didn't have any mid-card titles at the time, right? So I was like, okay, this makes sense. So let's hopefully not see any other championships, right? But then, of course, Tony Khan had to bring in the international title, which I didn't have a problem with at first, right? Because, the guy that had the title at the time, I don't know if you remember, Orange Cassidy, right?
Oh, yeah.
He was literally defending that title every week, and he was actually putting on some pretty good banger matches. And like his, I guess the way for him to keep the title was kind of crazy. Like, he was barely squeaking by with like the victories on most of his wins. I think that was like a good like 4 or 5 or 6 month stint where he actually was like, probably my favorite guy in the company as far as like a wrestler and champion goes. But even then, like ever since then, like they really haven't done shit with it. Of course, obviously the current champion is Kenny Omega, but that guy also just returned from his, from his stomach issues that he had. I don't know if you guys know, Kenny Omega had diverticulitis, where they had to like cut out like half of his intestines. And he was out for a good year. I think he was out for like a good year, at least, I believe.
Yeah.
For recovery. So, for him to be out that long and, he's not 100% still, for them to put a title on him like that. And now that, him and Okada they're going to go, they're going to merge their titles, I guess, which is the Continental Championship, which I'm happy about because there was really no point in having the Continental title and the international title. They're just going to merge it into one. And I just hope they already revealed the belt on that one. I don't know if you saw pictures of it or not. I think it's ugly as shit. You know what I mean? The unified international champion or whatever. I don't even know.
They better call it, because like already right there, like, you know, WWE fans are gonna like see that real quickly.
Yeah.
International champion, continental champion, intercontinental champion.
No, they can't do it because they can't use it because WWE has a patent on it. It's trademarked.
Yeah, it's trademarked,
so
but it's just
they can't do
it's
it.
Just
but
funny.
It's hilarious. But no, I think they're just gonna keep the international title name. I think they're gonna get rid of the continental name just because I think that was too close. You know what? The One Winged Angel.
Yeah, a reference to what's his name? I can't think of his name.
The Japanese wrestler.
No.
Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a reference to video games. Everyone knows that Kenny Omega is like a big video game mark, so he named his move after
Sephiroth.
Sephiroth, you know, the character.
That's what it is. Yeah, because Sephiroth is the One-Winged Angel.
I was playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth the other night on PlayStation, by the way. I don't know if you caught that stream, but I was streaming a little bit of it because I'm playing the second part to it on PS5. So I haven't beaten it, and I already have like almost 50 hours into the game. I'm so mad, dude. That's such a long game, honestly. Anyways.
Oh, man.
I might, if I get bored, I might play a little bit of it tonight on the B-Tech channel just to kind of chat with you guys. If
you play tonight, I'll swing by in and watch. Yeah. I love Final Fantasy.
Yeah, the remakes are pretty good, although like I still think that they take away from like the original in a lot of ways. But I can get into that later on, I guess. But anyways, yeah, man, AEW has just been kind of, you know, interesting. I don't even know what the rest of the card is. Should I look for the rest of the card? All in card 2025. Let's look it for it really quick.
Go ahead, bring it in. I just want to see how
like 20 matches.
Is. 20 matches. Oh my god.
Not including the pre-show. Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can find it. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
I'll bring it up right now. 1 second. Let me just. Here we go. Okay, so here we go. AEW card so far. Let's see. The current all-in lineup includes the AEW World Championship, which is Jon Moxley versus Hangman Page in a Texas death match, and they've already had a Texas death match, by the way, guys. You can go watch it free on YouTube right now. The AEW Women's World Championship, Toni Storm versus Mercedes Moné, which I have a feeling Moné is going to win that title, unfortunately.
Oh, God.
You have title versus title match, which we just talked about. Kenny Omega versus the Continental Champion Kazuchika Okaka, or as Jim Cornette calls him, Cody. Because he's like the Japanese version. He's the Japanese version of Cody Rhodes, basically. Cody. Then we have the World Tag Team Championship, which I have not paid attention to at all, by the way, because the Hurt Syndicate have been tag team champions, but there really has been no competition for them since they won the tag team championship. So I guess we have them versus Speedball, Mike Bailey, and Kevin Knight versus Christian Cage and Nick Wayne. I didn't even know Christian Cage and Nick Wayne were in this match. So I'm already assuming that this is going to be some sort of like gimmicky match, like a TLC match or maybe a ladder match. It's not there in the final print, but everybody knows that triple threat matches are anything goes. Like anything goes in those type of matches. It's not just going to be a regular tag match.
So they're going to do the concerto.
So we'll see how that goes. They dropped the ball with Christian Cage also because he had their version of the Money in the Bank briefcase, and they failed to capitalize on that when Jon Moxley was champion. So that they gave that up. We have TNT champion Adam Cole versus Kyle Fletcher, which I had no clue that this match was happening. I really haven't been paying too much attention to that title picture. I know Kyle Fletcher. He won against Will Ospreay, I believe, at Double or Nothing. I think they had like a cage match or something like that, which was kind of a match. And like, there's nothing wrong with him in the ring, man. That there's just no character. I think what overshadows him is the fact that he's in the Don Callis family, and that they're just not, he's dressing like I don't want to offend anyone out there, but like a Metro version of like the Hart family, basically, because now he's dressing up like in more pinkish. But they're also kind of like, like if he's a what's that word that I'm looking for? Like a
Don Callis, man.
Like a drag queen, basically, but like in guy clothes, basically.
Don Callis, AEW's resident Paul Heyman.
basically,
God.
when he's doing a horrible job.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Men's Casino Gauntlet, which I have a feeling this match is going to be like at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Which again, you have number one Mark Briscoe versus MJF, Mystico, and more. So who knows how many people are going to be in this gauntlet? Usually gauntlet matches, there's usually maybe like 5 to 10 people, depending on how many people. And then they have a women's gauntlet match. Again, I don't know. Okay, winner earns world title shot. But they don't say if that's going to happen like then and there, or, you know, again, at a later date, right? So it could happen like at Wrestle Dream or something to that extent, I guess. So we're having 2 of those matches, not just the men's, but the women's as well. And then you have, again, another no one cares match, Young Bucks versus Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay. Evie Power on the line against the no world title shots for a year.
Oh, my God.
So that's going to be interesting.
What's this belt look like?
You want me to Google it? Let me see. Hold on. Let's see. New.
Does it look as stupid as the X Division title in TNA when they changed it to that weird looking skinny one?
Oh my gosh! Hold on. Let me look for it. Let's see. Oh, it's this one right here. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. The new Unified. I mean, I guess it doesn't look too bad close up. I didn't really care about like the current international title because it reminded me too much of Lucha Underground's Gift of the Gods title. If you remember that or not, but it doesn't look too bad. Yeah, I don't think it looks too bad. I
was thinking when you said that it looked terrible, I was thinking because like I remember when TNA changed the X Division Championship from what it originally was to that new version that looked like the skinny version of the NXT Championship when it used to be the NXT X title, and I was like, when I saw that X Division Championship belt and just how ridiculous it looked, it came to my head when you were like, they made a new belt when they unified the international and the continental belt. I was like, oh no. Mm-hmm. That's something that's like skinny that looks like a women's title.
Yeah, and that's because they've already changed this championship like already so many times. Like, you know, when MJF won it, he made it the American Championship.
Oh my God.
I'm just like to myself, like, damn, like, I mean, I'm not a fan of it because it reminds me too much of the original women's title that they had in AEW. It's just like a bigger version, like, but it's just like, okay, like, I get it. Like, you see, look, this is the women's title.
Oh my God!
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Like, you know, and then here's the new title. So it's like, okay, it's just a bigger version of the women's title.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So I'm just like, all right, whatever. You know, I mean, I guess it doesn't look bad.
Belts. They got too many belts. Yeah. Honestly,
yeah,
TNA's got too many belts. They're like Oprah with it. You get a championship. You get a championship. Come on.
Yeah, it's
AEW stop.
I preferred it when it was the American Championship. There you go. Look at that beautiful thing. The American Championship. Let's go, America.
If they want to
they don't have a US title.
They really just got to have one main title, one mid card title, a tag team for each gender. You know, for the women's division, for the men's division, call it a day at that. I mean, if they really need all these belts, then they need to like step up Collision and kind of do a brand split type of thing that WWE's done. And it would make sense too, because even then, like I said, you know, WWE doesn't do this idea, so maybe AEW can capitalize on it. But if they had, you know, like, first of all, get rid of the TV belts, right? So the TNT title, TBS title, get rid of them. We don't need them. All right. I would say don't unify the international and the continental title. Let those be on 2 different brand shows. But the ones who hold those belts at least longer than 90 days earns a shot at the AEW World Heavyweight Championship.
Right.
You know, kind of like what Hulk Hogan did in TNA, where like if you want the X Division title, you can hold the belt or you can cash it in for a shot at the World Championship. And you know, they could have done something like that, but they got too many belts. I
totally forgot about this, by the way, that Pac was a double champion, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
The trios and the international champion, which I think he ended up getting hurt again, man. I think something happened with his leg or foot. But, like, look at all these champions that were, I guess, international champion. I forgot Moxley was champion because he was the international champion for, like, a minute, man. Highly underrated was Roderick Strong, man. I thought he was a good international champion, honestly. And if you go back and watch that match with him and Will Ospreay from last year when he lost it, man, that was like a 5-star banger, man. Honestly, like he carried a lot of that match, man. Honestly. So I kind of feel bad because they really haven't done anything with him since then. He's back with Kyle O'Reilly, and what's called the Paragon now. They got rid of the undisputed name, and now they call themselves Paragon, by the way.
Oh my god!
Which I'm just like, okay, you know what I mean. And like I said, they, Will Ospreay is stuck in a tag match this year, rather than being the guy at All In versus Jon Moxley, which is very interesting to me that he was not the guy that was picked for the main event this year, man. Honestly, so we'll see how that goes, man. I don't know, but is there any? I don't know. I guess we've already been on for way more than an hour already. Let me see, 1 hour and 20 minutes. So before I guess we sign off soon, anything else you want to make mention, WWE or AEW related?
I would say, in closing out for the wrestling talk. Oh my god!
When was Phoenix champion? You see, like I don't fucking remember that at all, dude. He might have been champion for like a minute. Yeah, I think he.
You know what's sad? You know what's sad about that image? The fact that he was a champion in that promotion, the way that he was carried in that promotion, and the way they're carrying him in WWE right now.
Yeah,
it's just night and day. Like it don't make sense. But with all these things going on, I mean, like for the fans out there, I can sit here and probably go 6 hours telling you what's wrong with all these promotions. But at the end of the day, these guys, the talent, the wrestlers, whatever promotion they're on, they put their heart into it, And so no matter if I like the programming or not, I will watch it in some form or fashion. Now, I don't watch Dynamite from beginning to end, but I do watch Dynamite clips on TikTok or YouTube Shorts to give them that view, to give them that support. And honestly, I just think that these guys that are, behind the scenes in the suits, running things back there, like maybe they need to watch old clips of like the Attitude Era. They need to watch how things were booked and actually review the Monday Night Wars between WCW and WWE. Because I think it would help them kind of get a footing on how they're gonna push their brands. Like I don't need AEW to be exactly like WWE because I see what they have and I like it. They just need to do some things better. So in all, with all the stories that's happening, obviously, you're gonna have to have ADHD to kind of keep up with it because even WWE is having some weird change-ups in stories, and they're trying to find the best fitting to produce money to kind of take care of that debt. Oh my god!
I forgot that Cody was one of the first TNT champions. I think he was the first. No.
Yeah, which is kind of sad because that's always something that people will go to now when they want to cut a promo on him, was that he was a guy in a promotion that couldn't get the top title in that promotion.
Yeah.
And it's like every time they say that, it stings because it's true, but it's like, I know why he didn't do it, because he didn't want to be like Triple H, which is why he crushed the Triple H's throne at their PLE, but yeah, it kind of sucks though when people bring it up and they're like, you're like a guy that helped build a company, but you couldn't even get the top title in that company. It's like, ooh, that stings.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Shout out to Cody though, man. Oh man, we got to do a SummerSlam prediction eventually.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll be able to do something this week. I'm gonna probably watch All In. Like, good thing for me is like I have the evenings off, like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so I'm gonna be able to watch like all the wrestling. So, I'm gonna watch All In Saturday, and then I'm gonna watch the rerun of Saturday Night Main Event probably either the following morning or after, and then whatever other pay-per-views that I missed as well, I guess, from WWE, because I definitely don't plan to miss out on All In. That's something I do plan to watch, and I'm probably gonna order it on Prime, honestly. So we'll see how that happens, and shit. We'll see how that goes.
Let me know who wins between Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley.
Shit, anyone remember this guy being the TNT champion?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that belt design, by the way, the white, you know what I mean? And then now he's back in WWE as a non-talking character, which is kind of
it's ridiculous.
Weird. So we can get more into some of the returns that we've seen as far as WWE goes on the next live. Maybe
yeah, that would be a
I'll
good
keep you
one to start off with.
yeah, if you have any other free days this week, let me know, and maybe we can go live again and maybe talk about some of these characters that have come back or that have recently come into WWE and what's going right with them, what's going wrong with them, etc.
I am free Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all day.
Damn, all right, so you're not working too much this weekend then?
No.
All right, well, I will see if we can maybe get on a show early Saturday, maybe. Well, I work Saturday, but like in the mid-afternoon, maybe before All In.
Yeah.
Or again, maybe Saturday or Sunday. I'm both free days, so we might be or we might get into that then. Okay.
Yep, and
if your schedule changes, though, of course.
Quick response. Yeah, joys of San Joaquin Valley. I know things is going crazy in Texas right now.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to them with the floods. I think it's well over 100 now. I got notified it's well over 100.
Last time I checked, there was 80 some deaths out there in Kerrville, but again, I haven't been following too much, unfortunately, just because it's been we had our own news here in South Texas with the shooting at the Border Patrol station. I don't know if you heard that one or not.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah,
that's literally like not even half a mile away from my job, dude. where that happened, by the way. So I could literally walk there if I wanted to for where that happened, man. So a lot of crazy stuff happening, man, in Texas. You're right about that.
Yeah, a lot of craziness happening, but my heart goes out to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a tough spot, but obviously B Tech is safe. He's doing a podcast with me, so he's not up to his neck in water.
Yeah, luckily, we did have rain at the beginning of beginning of last week. We had a lot of rain last week, actually. And then it kind of fizzled out after the midweek. So, no flooding down here, luckily. It just kind of droopy rain that just kind of, accumulated and then went away. But luckily, nothing down here where I live. Didn't expect for something like that to happen in Kerrville with, the river overflowing and just, the amount of devastation that happened. But anyways, man, again, like you said, heart and prayers go out to the people that were affected by it, all the families that lost their loved ones, man.
Yeah, it's a very tough spot. Eventually, B-Tech and I will do a tech live stream together also as well. So I know Joe's at San Joaquin Valley kind of wanted to dip into tech a little bit.
Oh yeah, he was talking a little bit about it. I saw it.
Yeah, but we'll do that on Budget Tech Reviews channel.
I might do a stream tonight. We'll see. I might do a stream tonight. We'll see. If you're free tonight, I'll hit you up. We'll see.
Yeah, let me know. I'm free tonight.
Yeah, because I don't work early tomorrow, so I can technically get on again. So
okay,
we'll see how late. Again, you're what, 2 hours behind me, right? So it would be like what about 2:30 your time right now?
Yep, it's 2:33 right now.
It's about 4:30 my time. Okay, yeah, for sure. So it would probably be around 10 o'clock my time then.
Cool.
Kind of get things going. So I'll message you though. We'll see what's up.
All right. So yeah, everyone in the chat that watches the tech stuff too, just be on the lookout if we go live and yeah.
Get those super chats ready. Get those super chats.
Yeah. Get those super chats ready.
Yeah, I got to talk to you about that, by the way, on my how getting rid of shorts kind of has changed my channel a little bit. So we can get into that as well.
Yeah. We can talk about that backstage real quick. But you want to take us out so that way we can close out.
So again, guys, thanks again for watching. Again, we really appreciate you being here today on a random Tuesday, by the way. Again, right now we don't have really a set format or day that we are streaming, guys. So definitely do apologize for inconsistency, but it's usually just when me and Tito are available and we can kind of align our schedule. But we're trying to keep it at once a week at least, right? Once a week.
Yeah.
Whether it be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or on a random Saturday or Sunday. So again, appreciate you guys being here with us and sharing the videos with your friends and family. We're 11 subscribers away from 100, guys. Okay, I know.
Oh my God, we're so close.
We're close to 100, and I can feel it, man. I want to see that backyard wrestling that Tito mentioned a while back that he was doing with his siblings growing up. So remember, guys, if we hit 100, Tito is gonna bust out those videos, and we're gonna see some backflip. Firebomb drops over here.
Oh my God, we did some stupid stuff. So yeah, definitely get us to 100. And you know what? Again, likewise, I apologize for the inconsistency, but this is why our channel has, and not just our channel, but every YouTube channel has a, bell notification. Hit it, and you'll know when we're live. And that way, if you can't watch us live, always catch the replay. And for sure, you won't miss a thing. But all right, everybody, be good, be safe out there. God be with everybody. Stay safe. Happy 4th to everyone out there too.
Yeah,
Glad.
happy late 4th.
Yeah. We'll see you on the next one.
All right.